And welcome back once again. I'm Jeff Rense here with you 6 nights a week, 3 hours a night. An outstanding program on tap for you tonight. I guess we could almost say it has been Reptilian Week, so to speak. Starting off Sunday night, during our third hour, Joyce Murphy brought us a guest, Heidi, who talked for an hour about some things that had to do with reptiles and worse, she said. Monday night, David Icke was here to talk about the reptilian consciousness amongst us. Tonight, remote viewing expert Tim Rifat is here live from the UK to talk about remote viewing reptilian consciousness. And then later on tonight, Ryan Wood and Dr. Bob Wood will be along to bring us the latest on the MJ12 documents. Yeah, it's nice to go back to England. It always is. To the UK, where right now it is 3 a.m., bright and very early in the morning. Tim Rifat is up and at 'em. His last name is spelled, in case you're interested, R-I-F-A-T. Tim has been on the program before and recently had published a very large book on his experiences with the whole world of remote viewing, and interesting experiences indeed. So he is back tonight to talk to us about the reptilian consciousness, and beyond that, he says that isn't the worst there is, as Heidi said on Sunday night, very interestingly enough. So, Tim, let's say hello and make sure you can hear us all right. Are you okay over there?
Yeah, fine. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. You sound great. You sound like you're right next door. The miracle of fiber optics.
Excellent.
Yeah, indeed. All right, my friend, when did you first get onto this whole idea that there may be other consciousness on this planet beside human consciousness, and then even beyond that? So give us the background on that, if you would.
It goes back to my early studies in the occult, where they talk about different levels of consciousness, different dimensions, and with remote viewing, which is psychic spying, you can actually enter different dimensions. You can enter the biophysical world, which overlays the physical world, and actually see these entities and then follow them back to their home dimensions. So one can actually see that even in the normal world, there are a number of energetic entities that are actually influencing mankind.
This whole idea of remote viewing remains one of the most profoundly fascinating that one could imagine. Now you're saying, and we've had many of the top remote viewers on, you're saying that in your experience, RV will let you go into other dimensions and actually meet up with or observe and follow other beings back to their home. This is really amazing. Yeah,
it's an aspect of remote viewing which is called interdimensional remote viewing, and you can think of the universe expanded so that there are different layers of the universe, and think of the universe altering a basic parameter so that you go from, like in an elevator, you go from one universe to the next, but as you drop down, the nature of the universe changes. So you go from one dimension to the next, to the next, to the next. Mm-hmm. And with remote viewing, you can actually journey to different dimensions of the Earth, because the Earth has different dimensional realities which you can actually travel to.
Can we even begin to hazard a guess as to how many different dimensional realities there might be?
Well, Carlos Castaneda talks about there being 600 different dimensional realities of the Earth.
All going on simultaneously.
Yeah, and that is the concept of the megaverse, multiverse.
Now, we as humans are pretty much bound to one of those dimensions, although not exclusively, because we have people doing OBEs, and they claim to be able to go other places. I'm not quite sure that we can draw a hard and fast line between OBEs, remote viewing, and all the different forms of it. There are a lot of lines to be drawn there, but nonetheless, humans are pretty much bound to this dimension.
No, the question is, if we are physical bodies with a biophysical component.
Right.
Remote viewing shows that we're not actually limited to this physical reality. We can actually project our biophysical field to any of these 600 different dimensional aspects of the Earth.
Yeah, I got the theory of it, but in point of fact, most people are not able or aware of that potential, so they are pretty much, as I said, bound to this particular plane.
No, the real question is, if you and myself and the rest of humanity have this potential, why is it that the majority, 99.99, etc., percent, are acting as if they're just lumps of flesh with no ability and no awareness of what is actually their God-given right? What is actually holding them back? That's the prime question from linking into their totality to actually become aware of their whole being.
Well, isn't that the game of oppression and subversion, to keep knowledge away from people, to bar them from that reality that they are cosmic beings and are being held pretty much here on this one dimension?
Correct. So if that is the case, and remote viewing shows that we are actually just in one aspect of the Earth's totality, there is actually a force that's keeping humans imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question comes, what actually is this force? Where does it come from? And why is it doing that? And if one looks at the question, one strays into the territory of David Icke and The Truth Shall Set You Free, where he talks about humans being imprisoned within this reality.
Mm-hmm. Now,
in The Biggest Secret, he puts the blame on things called reptiloids, which are supposed to be 7-foot-high, shape-shifting reptiles, which
mm-hmm.
actually are the Queen Mother and the Queen and Bush and basically the elite. Now, what I found is that isn't actually the case. There is actually a consciousness and a group of entities that are holding humanity as a food source, but they're of a much more energetic nature. They're not actually 7-foot-high shape-shifting reptiles, but actually there's a group of entities which Carlos Castaneda talks about in his last book before he died, The Active Side of Infinity, called mud shadows.
Right.
And what these actually are energetic parasites. Now, if you look at what they do in this world, they actually have projected their biophysical bodies from their own dimension into our dimension, and have actually then placed their nymphs, rather like the face huggers from Alien, but they're energetic face huggers, if that makes sense.
Got it.
Into the energy body of humans. So if you look at, with a remote viewing, remote sensing, at the energy body of a normal American citizen, or any normal human, you'll find that they've got this energetic parasite lodged in the top of their energy body, in the top of their biophysical field, and it then has actually burrowed its body into the center of their energy field.
Oh,
so
yeah, pretty ugly vision there. We often call these, I would assume, entities.
Yes. So what seems to be the case from remote viewing is
mm-hmm.
that there are alien entities buried in the biophysical body, not the physical body, the biophysical body of man. And since the biophysical body of man is actually the seat of mind and awareness,
mm-hmm.
they actually then control the awareness of mankind.
Ergo, possession.
Yes. So they then can limit the functioning of the biophysical body.
Mm-hmm.
So it then acts as if it can't do anything, and they keep the human physical form trapped in this dimension and trapped within very limited awareness.
And feed off of it.
Exactly. So what they do is actually they eat the biophysical body, and
Do they kill the host, or just feed off of it at their leisure, not killing off the source of their nutrition?
No, they actually kill off the human by eating the biophysical energy body, the external. Basically, the bit that they like the most is the external outside of the energy body, which they need to convert into a form which they can, what's the word for it, digest. And in order to do that, they need to pump the feelings of chaos into the awareness of that energy body. So they need to create fear, terror, warfare,
stress,
hatred, petty evil.
Yeah, I get it.
Basically the human condition we live in.
Well, and then, it's quite a revolutionary paradigm to lay on this, but it's one of those things that, again, sort of adds up if you think about it, the way you're presenting it. Let me ask a couple of questions. We'll get to phone calls later. If they do feed off and kill the bioenergy field of the human, what is left?
What is left?
Does the human die?
Yes. Basically, what happens is they eat the outside surface of the energy body, which is the awareness of the human, to the point where it sinks all the way down to just a small layer on the ground. Now, this then allows a force, a part of the unified field, to actually hammer the energy body. So you weaken the structural integrity of the energy body to the point where eventually it breaks apart, and once it breaks apart, the person dies. So what they cause is the premature aging and death of humans.
All right. Tim Rifat, remarkable presentation. We'll be back to consider this more, and I'm Jeff Rense. Don't forget the website at sightings.com. Be right back. And welcome back. Talking with Tim Rifat live in the UK about some pretty eclectic material tonight. This idea of possession, Tim, or nymphs, as you describe them, adhering and affixing themselves to the bioenergetic fields of human beings and, well, beginning to kill that person slowly but surely. How would you equate that to the commonly understood and commonly held belief that possession is possible? And some people can allegedly be viewed by people who have psychic ability and be seen to have these dark energy fields attached to them. Some people reportedly have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 of them at one time attached to them, causing no end of grief and strife and personal turmoil. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, but the basic thing is that the whole of humanity is possessed by this certain race of energy beings, and there are a certain few humans who've actually had their biophysical body completely consumed, and the actual, what we call it, the infectile, the thing that produces the nymphs, is actually using that body.
Uh-huh.
And these bodies are then used by the energy body of these alien parasites to spread these nymphs to increase the possession of the humans. And what happens is the energy body is seriously degraded to the point where it can do basically nothing, so that humans display no paranormal powers. The biophysical body orders the physical body. It's the source of life energy. So what happens is that the human body becomes fat and disfigured, because if you look at, say, for example, a normal fit human, they're perfectly proportioned and they look healthy and full of vigor. But if you look at a normal person, you'll find they look pretty unhealthy. More and more people are becoming out of condition fat, and it isn't their fault. Actually, the spread of this energy parasite is causing more and more degradation of the biophysical body.
All right.
I know it sounds completely mad, but if you
no, I don't
remotely view, you can actually see these things.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Without remote viewing,
doesn't sound any more mad than anything else on the program. It's just yet another way to look at this whole thing that is, on the face of it, 1 + 1 + 1, the way you're describing it. But there are so many versions and variants to the idea of what's happening on this planet. So how many different nymphs can be attached to one person without doing that person in?
Well, in fact, they all do that person in. In the normal lifespan of a human should be, I would guess, in the region of thousands of years. But with this biophysical parasite in there, it actually turns that person into an old, burnt-out shell, within a matter of 70 years. So,
okay, now let me interrupt, because there are a lot of people in the sciences listening who might suggest that we do know there are genetic keys, genetic triggers, which actually cause aging, and we're trying to find those triggers to turn them off. Now, how would the mechanical device of a genetic trigger equate to possession by a bioenergetic being?
Well, you see, think of the human biophysical body as being something that can travel within dimensions and realities.
Okay.
Now, each dimension and reality has its own physical laws. The parameters of the field equations of the unified field are changed. So what happens is that this parasite has actually placed humans in a certain position of the Earth's consciousness, let's put it that way, a certain reality,
right,
where humans are physical shells and their bodies are actually just lumps of meat. While if you move the consciousness, which is caused by moving something called the assemblage point, think of it as a cursor on a computer screen. If you move this cursor in the biophysical body, which is called the assemblage point, to a different position, you change the reality consciousness and actually the parameters of the physics of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So what has happened is that humans have actually been moved to a position where the mud shadows can actually trap them in a sort of living hell, which is what humans are living in at the moment. Why the parameters are such that the genes are such is that if you look at the biophysical body of man, the assemblage point on a normal human is on the right hand shoulder blade, about two foot from the actual physical body. And if you actually take the assemblage point and move it downwards in a straight line, you'll go to the left foot region of the assemblage of the energy body.
Okay.
Which, if you move your assemblage point, if you remotely view, which is basically moving the assemblage point, the cursor, to that position, you enter their reality. So what they've actually done is put humans diametrically opposite their dimension. So there's a straight conduit, if that makes sense, between their dimension and our dimension.
Oh, it's a mirror. It's a reverse mirror image.
Yes, exactly. And by doing this, they actually then have a in quantum mechanics, there's a superimposition of states where they can actually dream in our reality and suck our energy back into theirs.
Pretty rude, if you ask me. Hold on, Tim. Where it's 3 a.m., you're doing fine in the middle of the night over there, and we'll return after this. Welcome back. Tim, your book on remote viewing, as I remembered, it was about 500, almost 600 pages long. It was a big book. Give us the exact title, and is it yet available in the United States?
It's called Remote Viewing, the History and Science of Psychic Warfare and Spying. And no, it's not available in the United States because some of the documents from, I think, the DIA are being reclassified. So
it won't be here for a while.
I wouldn't have thought so because, I say, there's going to be contractual problems about getting it published with the DIA reclassifying some of the documents.
Remote Viewing, the History and Science of Psychic Warfare.
And Science.
And?
Science.
Got it.
Published by Century.
Yeah, Century. Is there a way that people can write for that book here from the States, though?
Yeah, they can get it from Random House UK, ordering it from them via...
website.
Yeah.
Okay, Random House UK, if you're interested in Tim's book, and it's a big one, Remote Viewing, the History and Science of Psychic Warfare and Science.
And Spying.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. See, it is 3 a.m. over there. It's spying, the last word. And it's spelled R-I-F-A-T, in case you want to write that down. Tim Rifat. Okay, Tim, we've got nymphs attached to us, which run our clocks down far quicker than they should be. But I still haven't gotten a satisfactory explanation about the genetic triggers that cause senescence or aging. How does that interface with bioenergetic entities that have attached themselves to us?
Well, the human body is in a state it shouldn't be, because the mud shadows, or I call them the insectiles, actually have placed humanity's consciousness in a dimension where we're in a physical body. So the genes which you're talking about are actually a product of the position of the assemblage point, this cursor, if that makes sense. So that, now if you think of the genes as little transducers of life force, or negative entropy, order, if these genes are then, think of them being influenced by the morphogenic fields. Now, morphogenic fields are fields which biologists have found or have postulated, which actually switch genes on and off. So if this morphogenic field is part of the biophysical field, and these alien biophysical fields are interfering in a negative way with our biophysical field, they therefore interact negatively with the morphogenic field, which then basically causes the genes to function in a way which is chaotic, causing premature aging. To answer your question.
All right. How do we get rid of, now the word exorcism comes to mind immediately, but can an exorcism actually evict one of these mud shadow nymphs from our bioenergetic field?
Yes, possibly, but one has to understand the nature of evil, and because David Icke talks about the luciferic force, which empowers the reptiloids, if I'm not mistaken. And one can think of these nymphs, these mud shadows, as being aspects of this chaotic force. So that if you introduce ordered energy into their fields, then they immediately are caused intense pain, and if you keep up the ordered energy long enough, they are basically converted into their basic components. You basically destroy them. So that if you think that manifestation is created by the true source, or God, whatever you want to call it, from something outside of dimensions, and this energy comes down from higher dimensions downwards, if you bring this energy into the being of the mud shadow nymph, then you can actually destroy it. Carlos Castaneda describes in the active side of infinity, if you can actually latch onto this vibrating force, which actually links the biophysical and physical body together, then the nymph cannot actually stay in the totality of man and is driven off. So,
okay, but how long?
Sorry?
Will he come back? Will the nymph come back?
As soon as you break contact with this unifying energy, this ordered energy, it will then try to reinfect you.
All right. Sounds pleasant. Are there other kinds of entities that attach themselves to people, or is this pretty much it in your view?
No, from what I've seen, this is there are dimensions with many different entities, but this is the dominant predator of humanity and has actually using humanity as its own personal food source. So the reptiloids, which David Icke talks about, are actually projections of consciousness from the mud shadows in order to induce fear in humans, because the more fear they can induce when, say, for example, now we're coming to a stage where some humans are beginning to develop their psychic powers. If you can actually project the image of a reptiloid at these people, you produce fear, and they can then consume more of the biophysical field of the human. Therefore,
but Tim, there are very few people who are seeing or encountering reptilians. It's a very minor sideshow here now. If the mud shadows want to induce mad fear to enhance their feeding frenzy lust on humanity, wouldn't they use a more viable and widespread MO?
Yes, they do. They use wars. They use basically the reality we live in. Which is,
they're keeping us up in the trees, is what you're saying.
Yes, but for the people who try to escape, the loony fringe, let's call them, the ones who don't believe in we're just a lump of flesh with a brain, and once we're dead, we're dead. They've actually created this mirage of reptiloids, which they can flash into the minds of these New Age people who are trying to break the bounds of the prison to create fear, which they can then use to de-energize these potential escapees. All
right, okay, we're coming up on a break. Why can't, given that, and I maybe you disagree, but at this point of the game, it would seem logical to assume that there are probably a number of different races and beings visiting here routinely. Why couldn't one of those races be a reptilian race?
Oh, I agree. I mean, there almost certainly are reptiloid awarenesses from different dimensions of the Earth, where, for example, the dinosaurs didn't die out, and a reptile-like intelligent form dominated. But I think the main problem is, why is humanity stuck in such a horrible world where petty evil is the dominant consciousness of man?
It is indeed. Hold on right there, Tim. Petty evil is certainly a factor, isn't it? Okay, we shall continue after this.
If you're enjoying tonight's Jeff Rense program, perhaps you'd like to have a recording of it for your own reference or to share with a friend, a group, or a civic leader. A premium quality cassette copy of tonight's 3-hour broadcast can be purchased for just $16.95 by calling our toll-free order number, 888-456-4340. The cost is just $16.95 plus $3 for shipping and handling. Operators are standing by to take your order. Just tell them you'd like to purchase a copy of tonight's Jeff Rense program. That number again is 888-456-4340. These programs come to you on quality audio cassettes and are copied directly from our studio masters. If you'd like a catalog listing over 1,000 Jeff Rense programs available on audio cassette, send $1 and your name and address to Infotapes, 262 East Taylor Street, Huntington, Indiana, 46750. That's $1 plus your name and address to Infotapes, 262 East Taylor Street, Huntington, Indiana, 46750.
And we're back with Tim Rifat, live in the UK, where it's 3:45 a.m. And you're doing great, Tim. Thanks for staying up late tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, we're talking about some pretty eclectic things tonight. Yet another explanation of what's wrong with humanity, why we suffer so much. We've heard many of them. And it's amazing how they all, in their own right, do sound logical. We have to make our own decisions on these things, of course, and we can't spend all of our consciousness, can we, Tim, worrying about nymphs being attached to us, draining our life's energy. We've got to still do the best we can.
No, hello?
Go right ahead.
Yep. The problem comes that we ignore these things, because if you do ignore them, you get trapped in a world where basically they create as much nastiness, petty evil as possible, to cause as much fear and sorrow and the various other human conditions, to degrade the human awareness so it can be consumed. So basically, the unpleasantness in the world is actually fed into the minds of humans by these things to cause the problems which consume our consciousness and lives, which allow these mud shadows to consume the awareness of man.
Why did Castaneda, if he was so knowledgeable about this, really fail to free himself of these items? He died, just about 70 years of age, I think.
Yeah, basically, I think the problem with Castaneda is that he fell between two stools. He listened to these teachings of Don Juan, which lots of commentators say he made up. But actually looking at, say, the mud shadow issue, you can actually verify with remote viewing these things exist and where they come from. But in order to free yourself from these parasites, one has to be very single-minded in actually ridding the energy body of them and then fastidiously keeping them out of your energy body for the rest of your life to allow the energy body to grow back, which then gives you the psychic powers and paranormal powers to actually mold reality to your will.
All right. So, interesting. Let's go to the telephones here and welcome Dudley to the program, calling in from southern Utah. Dudley, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. How you doing tonight?
Fine, thank you. Go right ahead to Tim Rifat. He's on the line here.
Okay. Should I talk now?
You got it.
Yeah, I was, you guys are talking about, I'll tell you, what I've been listening to, I've been a preacher, I've rode with Crusaders, and I'll tell you, I've really been around the block on this.
What do you mean you've rode with the Crusaders, Dudley?
It was a Christian motorcycle club, and I was very honorable to the Lord, and I still am. And,
okay.
These people were talking about, talking about spaceships and stuff. Well, I'll tell you, there is no other planet in this Earth that gives us human beings our life and the gifts that we gift, And, some people are right, and they're all talking about these aliens and devils and stuff. Boy, I'll tell you, that's just kind of a thing that I think the devil's just attacking him. Boy, I'll tell you, I've been through the ringer on this so many years, damn near 30 years.
All right, Dudley, hold on.
Yeah, can I stop now?
You can stop now, yes. If you have a question for Tim, we'll entertain it. Okay. All right, Dudley, interesting. 800-876-4123. All views are welcome here, but we would like to get a question, not just a statement if possible. Okay, Tim, in your world of remote viewing, you would then concede that there may be reptilians here among the other visiting species. How many species have you been able to RV who are here from other planets, other galaxies, other solar systems? Have you been able to come across and identify any?
Yeah, there's a whole number. There's so-called greys and the various different forms of greys.
And let me interrupt right here. What has your RV told you or enabled you to glean from watching the greys and sensing what they're about? What are they up to?
Basically, what we've got are, with the reptiloids and the greys and their masters, these insectiles, which are actually mentioned in UFO books, these insect-like things.
Well, praying mantis types. Yeah. Some people call them bugs, but whatever.
That's actually the physical body of these mud shadows. The mud shadows project their awareness.
So they're the mud shadows are the praying mantoids.
The mud shadow is the dreaming energy body of these insect-like beings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me get that slow. So the insect aliens are here. They've been here. They visit, but their dreaming energy bodies take on the shape, the configuration of the mud shadows. So it's sort of their out-of-body experience is a mud shadow.
Correct, and it's basically remote influencing, which the military use, but let us say 1 million years ahead of what we've got at the moment. And what made me interested in the whole question was looking at being one of the experts on psi warfare, the Russians have an immense lead over the rest of the world in psi warfare. Now, the question which came to me was, which actually precipitated this whole investigation, which sounds bizarre, and it even sounds bizarre to me, but the question was, if you look at different timelines, which is where history went differently, Russia, the Soviet Union, has won every single battle in the Cold War, and Russia actually dominates every single timeline apart from this one. Why? Because Russia developed psychic warfare and used it to kill, drive mad, and actually control the elite of the West that actually, run the West. And David Icke calls them the Rothschilds, Oppenheimers, Rockefellers, but they might be, might not. But there are a super rich elite who actually run the West as their own personal fiefdom. But in this reality, this timeline, Russia actually imploded. Now, what caused that implosion? From what I've seen is that the psychic warfare experts of Russia were actually physically taken over. Their energy bodies were ripped out of them, and these insect-like creatures actually took over the Russian psychic warfare people and caused them to implode the Soviet Union. This might sound bizarre, but that's what I've actually seen and experienced. Now, if that is the case, why did they do it? Well, because the Soviet Union was a threat to this timeline where they were having humans as a food, because if humans develop massive psychic warfare powers, remote killing, remote influencing, remote viewing, they can actually see these things and then combat them or learn how to combat them. And we can make remarkable steps along that path.
Have you been able to engage one of these items in combat and do well?
Yeah, I mean, once you know they're there, you can actually take them out and actually feed off them, blow their biophysical bodies to pieces, remotely view their home world, and then do to their physical bodies what they do to our physical bodies. So once you know they're there, you can actually remotely view, journey to their world, which is diametrically opposite from ours in the, call it the energy body of the Earth.
What is their world? What does their world look like?
Their world is a world where insects have actually, there was a great age of insects on the Earth, and it's a timeline where insect-like creatures dominate the Earth, and the dominant life form is a sort of hive mentality, rather like the one you see in the alien films. They look very similar to those creatures in their real body. But this whole world is it's the parallel world of the physical world of that dimension. So there's awareness. Reality is split into two components. There's an organic and an inorganic component. These are inorganic beings. Basically, their physical bodies are not physical like our physical bodies. They're more like bodies you see in when you're dreaming, if that makes sense. So that even their physical bodies aren't physical like ours. So their whole nature is centered on the biophysics. Their physical bodies are much more dreamlike and of a completely different nature. They're called inorganic beings. So they naturally feed on the biophysical field because even their so-called physical bodies are what we would see as an energy body, while the physical world from that dimension is something that they've conquered, rather like they've started to conquer our world. So think of them as a hive mentality like these aliens that actually feed on the biophysical body rather than the physical body, rather like parasitic wasps or, that inject their nymph into the caterpillar and eat it alive. They do the same to their victims, but they do it to the biophysical body. And since the biophysical body is a quantum computer, it's actually where the mind resides. So if they can do that, they can actually take over the mind of the victim. So they can actually make the victim think that the thoughts they're thinking are the thoughts that the victim is actually, they think the victim actually thinks the thoughts they're thinking come from themselves rather than the parasite. So they can actually get the physical body, for example, of a human to do anything they like by planting the thoughts in there. So all the petty evils, all the evils in the world actually come from this evil, chaotic source which is actually taken over the mind of man.
It's a dangerous world out there, Tim.
Dangerous.
Yeah. All right, hold on. We'll take our top-of-the-hour break, listen to some news, and come right back. I'm Jeff Rense here with you Sunday through Friday. And Saturday nights, too, we're available as Talk Radio Network replays one of our top shows of the week for radio stations around the country who would like to carry us on Saturdays. You've got that opportunity. We're going to be back in just a few minutes, so stay tuned and we'll continue. Okay, back with Tim Rifat, hour number 2. We'll be talking to Dr. Bob Wood and Ryan Wood about those most enigmatic and exciting, and some say sensational, MJ-12 documents, of which there are hundreds now. We're going to talk to them later on to get an update. They've got a brand new website. We'll be able to direct you there. We'll take a look at some of the documents in question. Okay, Tim, we're getting some email questions in. If you folks want to call in, it's 800-876-4123, of course. Here's one from David. Can you ask him in what way the development of the world's religions may have been influenced by these creatures? Also, is there any way an average person can tell how heavily infected they may be?
With the world's religions, it seems that at the start there were people who were perceiving truths, but as time goes by, these creatures obfuscate, cover up as much of the truth with meaningless ritual and various other paraphernalia, so that one gets divorced from the truth, if that makes sense.
Okay. Any way to tell how heavily infested we may be individually?
Yeah, I mean, with remote viewing, you can actually look at the person and actually see this entity actually embedded in the top of the energy body. If you can actually see auras, these aura visions, you can actually see this dark, chaotic energy field, which is actually over the top of the head. So you can actually, if you walk down the street, you can actually see these things in the energy bodies of everyone you pass. And that's an aspect of remote sensing. So rather than actually using it for military purposes, you can actually use it to look at these creatures. The thing is that if you don't know that they exist with remote viewing or remote sensing, you can't actually lock into that reality. But once you realize that these entities exist, and remote viewers, as I say, have started to see energy beings, if you specifically look at humans, you can actually see that almost all humans have got these parasites in their energy body.
Well, I've heard that from a lot of different people who are able to allegedly, again, see entities, see possession, see problems within people. Now, your explanation is mud shadows, which are the out-of-body projections, the dream state of the insect, ETs, which is,
ETs from another dimension, yeah.
Right, got it, okay. Here are some more questions for you. Do these mud shadows infest other alien races, we being just one alien race to them, of course?
Certainly, because it's a form of conquest. Instead of landing in giant spaceships and zapping the humans and herding them off to concentration camps, You infect the biophysical body, which actually controls the physical body. You control the mind of the humans, therefore you can control their reality. So it's the ultimate way of actually conquering an alien race. So it's the biophysical, if you think of remote viewing and psi warfare as the first primitive steps in humanity's access into biophysical warfare, what these insectiles practice is high-level psychic warfare, where you actually take over whole races, whole realities, and if you remotely view other realities, you can see that these things have taken over many, many different dimensions using exactly the same techniques.
Okay. Here's a question from Ed. As we are multidimensional beings with limited access to the higher self, why would the higher self, our higher selves, allow such goings-on with these parasites?
Basically because the biophysical body, the higher self, has actually been trapped in an energy prison by these things, which are actually the vessels for this hive-like mentality is actually the possessed itself by the chaotic force, the so-called luciferic force, which actually has trapped human awareness in this awareness prison. We've actually came into this level of reality to experience what chaos was like, but if you forget where you come from, think of the scenario where you actually dream yourself into a dream, but then forget that you are actually dreaming. You get trapped there. So likewise, human awareness, even if it came from a higher dimension with massive awareness and knowledge of what it was, once it forgets that it's actually dreaming in a dream and thinks that the dream is actually real, it gets trapped there. And that's exactly the position that humans find themselves in this part of our evolution.
All right, let me, Tim, in our remaining time this half hour, I'm going to switch gears a bit, get away from mud shadows. You've done a lot of work on the geopolitics of the world in terms of your remote viewing skills. I think we need to talk about Y2K a bit and about what's happening in Russia. One of the top generals in Russia just basically threatened the U.S. again, stay out of our affairs. It's none of your business what we're doing here in Chechnya. And I'm curious to see how you read it from there in the UK.
Well, what's happened in Russia is that the Russians have actually come to the conclusion that the West, NATO, have only one aim in life, which is to bring Russia down, to destroy Russia, to dismember it.
First of all, they've overseen the former Soviet Union turn into a gangster nation, basically, so maybe that's step one in bringing it down. The argument could be made that that is the case.
No, but the mafia, the Russian mafia, was there from the 1960s, spreading out from the Gulag system to actually...
Not in such force as it is today.
No, but once the command and control, the Communist Party fell, they just went into these new economic niches that were opened up to them. And since their ferocity and ruthlessness is something that not even your FBI have any, experience of, they were able to, as I say, take over large portions of the Russian state.
Talk about devouring another body.
Certainly. But now we have the situation where the mafia are in control, basically, of a country which has nuclear weapons.
Oh, you got gangsters with bombs, big bombs.
Very big bombs.
And chemical and biological weapons as well.
But also, the main weapon which the West hasn't cottoned onto, but people like Vladimir Zhirinovsky, have actually warned you of in 1996. He did a documentary. they said, we've got remote killers that can kill you up to 1,000 kilometers away. And everyone in the West went, oh, he's nuts. This couldn't possibly happen. Now,
well, in 1980, 87, 88, Yeltsin made the statement that, and this was a slip, but he said at 1,000 meters they had a machine that could stop the beating heart in anything. And that was a giveaway then, but that was 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, and these basically microwave devices that jam the heart up for things that are regularly used now for assassinations. But the main thing is with psychic warfare, you can actually target the elite of the West. Now, the West is run as a what I would say a fascist state, where you've got a few bankers who actually control the West. Now, if you look at this super elite behind the scenes who own, for example, the multinationals are owned by this elite. Your Federal Reserve is owned by the elite via Citibank and Chemical Bank, who go back to these few people. So you've got a few people who control the West. Now, with psychic warfare, if you can control these few people, then you can put immense pressure on the West and actually get the West to do what you want. Now, the situation in Russia is the Russians have cottoned on that the West wants to destroy Russia and basically dismember it. That's from their viewpoint. And with the advent of psi warfare, they can actually then put pressure on the West and actually target the few people who control the West. And this is the Achilles heel of the West, that there are a few people in the West who pull all the strings. If the Russians can get to them, kill them, control them, which they can do, they can then actually blackmail the West and actually not control it, but wield immense power over it.
They sure can call some shots. All right, we'll pause, come right back with Tim Rifat. Coming up, bottom of the hour, Dr. Bob Wood and Ryan Wood in the MJ12 papers. Okay, we're back, and Tim is hanging in there at, it's 4, what is it, Tim, 4:20 a.m.?
Yep.
Doing well. You're going to be asleep pretty soon, so hold on. We just have a few minutes to go. I don't know how you guys do it over there, but you're always doing wonderful things to try and get the information out there. Okay, Pat in Portland, listening on Hot Talk, KOTK. Hello, Pat. Come on here and ask a question of Tim.
Hi. I would like to know how an individual can protect themselves from these, quote, mudslingers.
Well, you might as well call them mudslingers. They're mud shadows, entities, whatever. And okay, Tim, what kind of armor can we put up? Can we put white light around us?
If you stop talking to yourself, the internal dialogue, then they don't like that very much. And if you actually visualize this white light, this ordered force, call it the true source or whatever, coming into yourself, and visualize that constantly coming in, then it raises the frequency of the energy body, and since they're creatures of chaos, they then have to disengage from your biophysical body.
You said something about stop talking internal dialogue?
Yeah, because basically there are thoughts in your head all the time which you think is yourself talking to you, but actually that is the entity actually planting thoughts, words into your head all the time to keep you in the so-called zombie state. So when you think you're thinking to yourself, it's actually this entity which has taken over your mind.
Even if it helps you?
Sorry?
Even if it helps me, my thoughts.
Like, I don't want you, Pat, to think that everything you think in your mind is coming from a mudslinger or mud shadow, because it's just not the case. We do have the ability to commune legitimately with ourselves, but I think what Tim is saying here is that there apparently is influence, in his view, from outside, and to separate the two, I think, is the real issue here.
Yeah.
So when I feel fear, then I know that's them talking.
Well, when you feel fear, you're feeding them. They love that.
Oh, okay.
That's the net result of their alleged messing with you because they like that.
And if I continue to feel, and if it overwhelms me, then I know they're totally in control.
Don't let them. Yeah, don't feed them. Don't let them win.
Yeah,
in other words, you've seen the bumper sticker where it says "No fear."
Yeah.
Think about that.
If you could actually get rid of fear from your consciousness, where you don't fear anything, where you're a psychic pit bull, then they would not be able to feed on your consciousness because your awareness would not be in a chaotic state which they would be able to consume. And therefore what happens is they disengage from your energy body because it hurts them. And then you know instantly when they come back because you know there's some foreign feelings, foreign thoughts, which you don't like. So once you kick them out, you can then realize when they try and get back in again. And with remote viewing, you can actually see them trying to actually physically get back into the biophysical body.
Now, if I could protect myself and learn to do this, can I also protect my children?
Teach them not to fear.
Because this ordered energy, this call it white light, which you can actually project into yourself, you can actually project into your children and actually disengage these things from your children. The main key is we're totally helpless unless we're actually aware that things like this exist. And once you know they're there, you can actually fight them, and they're quite easy to destroy. The main problem is that humanity doesn't think that anything like this can possibly exist, and if anyone talks about it, it's totally ludicrous. And that's their main strength, that no one actually knows that these things exist. Once you know they're there, you can actually kick them out and destroy them quite easily.
Just knowing they're there may push them out.
Yeah,
right?
But actually bringing this ordered energy, because they're actually, they've got a chaotic consciousness, bringing that ordered light, white light, if you want to call it that, into your being, and actually not fearing anything, and not allowing any negative thought like jealousy or any sort of petty evil, thinking that doesn't come from me, that's nothing to do with me. If you can get into that disciplined way of thinking, where you only think right thoughts, which is what the moral majority and the rest of the Christian people actually talk about. But there is actually a basis to this, where if you can actually live in the light and think only right thoughts, then these creatures can't actually stay in your energy body.
So even though I don't tell my children, I can still protect them by the way I live.
Lead by example.
One person can actually de-louse all the people around them. And the thing is that once these parasites are out of your energy body grows back, and you start developing tremendous psychic powers, which you can then use to actually travel to their world and actually start kicking the shit out of them in their dimension.
All right.
It's a win-win situation once you know they're there.
Okay. Pat, we've got to run.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. And Tim, thank you for staying up in the middle of the night to share your views and research with us all. We'll look forward to...
And thanks for having me on such a strange subject.
Well, it is an odd one. We'll talk again. Good night.
Thanks, bye.
All right, Mr. Tim Rifat, R-I-F-A-T. Bottom line here is fear is not a productive energy under any circumstance.